Going on, everybody? We are here. This is the Frank Experience, and I'm here with Jaime Garza, the owner of Ignite Cinemas. Holla!
Hey, you know what it is, man. Episode number 7, Frank Experience. Let's go. What's going on, Wesley?
Nothing much, man. So let's kind of dive into it. So I want to make sure that people listening that this podcast is about business. It's about passions. It's about experiences that expand your perspective. So let's dive in.
Let's go.
Jamie, how did you get into video? How did that start, man?
Yeah, man. Shoot, I could go way back. I'm a big wrestling nerd, so like I always enjoyed the videos, like the promos before like a pay-per-view event. I remember, watching it like SummerSlam and stuff with Stone Cold and Undertaker, and like it always was in my mind, like, man, I really want a camera one day. But back then they were expensive. My mom couldn't afford that type of money. So when I started working at Best Buy, I actually won like a flip cam before iPhones were out, before like I was on
Yeah.
a sidekick, and that's when I started taking that thing everywhere, documenting things. I was into the music space, so I would DJ, I would do mixtape DJs. I used to do mixtapes with my friends, and that was added value. I would like do behind the scenes. We're at the studio or going to a show, and they loved it, and I started. It started clicking with me, and then eventually I invested into a DSLR camera. I was an icon at the time with my tax refund from Best Buy, and I recorded a music video for my buddy, and I realized like, yo, I can do it. Like I can do it. And what started off as a hobby, I started making $300, 250 bucks from that. And soon when I was working Best Buy, I was playing both sides, one foot in, one foot out. And then, I started calling off work and stuff because I was getting booked more. And then, yeah, man, that's what started it. But really, it started with just like being able to document stories, being able to tell stories, and really make people happy because they were happy that they were getting on to their goals, and I was happy because I was helping them. And that's kind of like where I'm at right now. It's the same process. Like I love video, sure, but tell me your goals. I'm riding with you. I'm not gonna
Right.
be, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be happy until you reach that goal.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
yeah,
Like I like that because like you're trying to help them understand like I want to build a partnership with you and I want to work with you and I want to see you actually accomplish these goals. I'm not just here like money's a thing. There's got to be a transaction. Some businesses just focus on that, and you can clearly see that by the energy of the person you're talking to, and that's something that like I want to kind of dive into. Like, where did you get that energy from? Like, how like did you get that as a reflection of your watching wrestling, or like where'd you get that from?
that's funny, man. Like I used to be super shy growing up, like in school. Like unless you knew me, you would get my personality. It has always been dynamic, but like I was very to myself, and it wasn't until high school where I started to like grow into a little bit more and be more open, especially out of high school. But I honestly, and I was joking with my mom that last week because her favorite wrestlers are Rock. But I honestly
Right.
think seeing those men cut promo, and you probably seen some of the lives I do, like in the things I make for my content personally. Those those people are in my head when
Right.
I do things. So I think a lot of that was inspired from like The Rock, from Stone Cold, the Goldberg whenever he spoke, the charisma of like DX, like I think I
Yeah.
put all of it in a pot and made it work. And it's influential, man. Like, that's part of who I am. And I really feel like that's what helps me stick out and connect with people. That type of I'm blessed for it, man. Shouts to charisma, man. Gotta keep that charisma.
You got to, man. You got to, and that's the kind of thing where if I can relate to that, man, like I've always found myself growing up, like I was that person that had the struggle of being friend. Like it's weird because people when they either grow up in the same street, same neighborhood, same city, same state for all their life, and it's very easy for them. They grow this group of friends, and for some people, and this is another topic that I think is super important to discuss, is the reality of what people see growing up is not actually true, because like rapidly the minute you graduate high school, if you move, you may go to college with that person, but the minute you're out of college, life just it takes you into this different direction. And you realize real quick, I found that I was that kid that had like a friend in each one of the group of friends, and it was difficult to find where I fit in. But I then found, as I grew as a person in my age, um, that like, because I actually people like I actually didn't want to talk about this, but not just in this podcast, but like episode, but like in general, I thought about like, should I be open about this part of myself? And then I realized that like it's such an important topic that if I don't, I'm doing a disservice. So I was actually born with brain damage that basically created like a mental disability of learning. So I had a learning issue, and then just a social dynamic issue. So like I was that person that like you thought was kind of weird, and like, what's this dude? Like everybody's got this joke, but he's like, what? So for me, that was a difficulty, and like a lot of how I am today, just comes with like uh, instead of outwardly projecting a lot of things that you see certain people with the learning disability or social disability mentally. Um, I'm not saying I'm faking. I'm just saying like I don't outwardly express a lot of the things, and I've learned to not just mask it, but think differently, because I'm able to create good relationships and things like that. So I'll tell you about something real quick. The other day, my wife and I were voting, right? I was in line. I love talking to people, man. I love like connecting with other people, even if I don't know them. I'm not trying to be weird. It's just like it never comes across that way. So I'm in this line and I see this dude's like, he's got a dope sweater. Like it's a cool color, it's a cool design, whatever. And he's right behind us, and I'm feeling nervous. I'm feeling weird. I'm like, I want to tell this dude he's got a dope ass sweater, but like, how can I go about it? Like, I don't want to make, you know what I mean? You go through that thing in your head, like I just want to say hi, kind of thing. And that's just something that people struggle with. But that has a lot to do with what you're talking about, like that shyness, that nervousness to like speak up and say something. And so eventually, I just kind of I found something to make sort of a segue into talking to him, and that was like, hey, I got a half day off of work, and I just mentioned that to my wife, and then I'll have to go back to work. And then I turned around and said, "Hey, man, you got the day off for work or whatever?" And he's like, "Nah, man, I got to go back." And I took that and I was like, okay. And then I was able to go and dive in and be like, "Hey, man, you got a dope sweater, dude. That's really cool. What is that?" And because I didn't see it because he was like bent over and it looked like basketball. That's what I thought initially. He was like, "Nah, man, it's baseball." I was like, "Oh, you play baseball?" And he was like, "Yeah. I'm shortstop." I was like, "Dope." I don't necessarily watch baseball, but I got a lot of friends who really love that stuff, man. I'm more of a basketball guy myself, but just kind of really try to start something super small, super short conversation. Be like, "Hey, man, like that's cool that you're here to vote because I think that's really dope." And that's really what I wanted to say also. But that whole thing, like people struggle with that. People struggle with like expressing themselves. So that personality that you got, man, people need to understand that doesn't come easy. People have to like make a choice, an active choice every day when they're talking to other people, because you bring a certain energy into the room. So like, that's how people remember you. Like people like realistically, the reality is people are afraid to be themselves. And so that's why I think that's super important to like dive into that and whatnot. But I did have a question for you, man. So with everything going on this year, it's kind of hard not to talk about it. But essentially, how did what's happening with I don't know if we can say COVID or not. Hopefully I don't get this video taken down when I post it. But how did COVID affect your business, man?
Scary, of course. Before I get into that, I think it's awesome that you shared that nonetheless. I feel that of how like you are opening up and now you can have conversations, and you pretty much maneuvered and pivoted to who you are today right now. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So I thank you for sharing that, man. You can inspire somebody just hearing that right now. To answer your question though, yes, COVID, the infamous, like, man, I was about to get married. Like March was my biggest sales month ever. I was rocking it. I was in my zone. I'm like, yes, everything was clicking. And then when that happened, you know, I serve business to business. That's what I'm in a business for. I'm helping them. So that community's down, I'm down. So I was literally stretching that big month I had throughout those months because it was real quiet until about August when things started
Right.
back up, you know, but I always try to look at a silver lining in things. And yes, I could complain and blame it on a pandemic, but it's not in my nature to do that because we can't control that. We can only control how we play now. So I was doing my best and my just due. I live by a mantra called Giver's Gain that I learned from the BNI network.
Right.
It's just giving to a point of not expecting nothing in return. Just because I'm going to still live my purpose and what I feel the one above has blessed me with,
Right.
and the energy I have and spreading that positivity. I'm not about to fake it right now, no matter. I should, because like I'm feeling it just like everyone else. So I did my just due. I was getting on free strategy consultation calls with some good friends of mine, helping them pivot, helping them open up to minds of what you can do. You have a yoga studio here, but maybe you can do online classes, or and just helping them.
Yeah.
And not necessarily asking for money, like, yeah, let me help to shoot you, but like providing value for them. I did about 10 calls in that month with people who took action. And
Right.
I was there helping the nonprofits I served previously, helping nonprofits even re-cater their messaging to what's happening now, because
Right.
they dealt with mostly kids. So honestly, it was just having a mind state of like, this is temporary. This isn't what's the word? This isn't forever.
Yeah. Right.
And
It's temporary.
exactly. And being who I am, I was putting out more content that was motivation. I was putting more content out that was entertaining to help people. Everyone could talk about it, to help less. When you browse through Facebook, you're not going to see a depressed post, not a depressed post, but you're not going to see a negative post. You're going to see something that might uplift you for that moment.
Right.
Through it. So that's how I shifted, man, and staying with that mentality. And honestly, it is paying off now.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, I've definitely when in my own content, I've actually seen that, where when I actually post stuff that is either truly authentic or pumps other people up, and I definitely see in the content. Like there was one time where the huge divisiveness I had recently, like right before that piece of content that I made, I had a disagreement with a friend of mine, but it pushed me to make this piece of content that just basically said he thought I was like, oh, you made that video because of me. I was like, no. Like what happened with us made me realize that the divisiveness that everybody has, especially the difficulty in communication over text or messaging or all that kind of stuff, like when you're trying to have a real conversation, it's very difficult to convey what you're really trying to say unless you do a video. Like, I don't know what people's fear about doing a phone call or doing it. Like phone calls are great too. Like it's either a phone call and or video, not, you know what I mean? So like you can convey your message, whatever it is, even if you don't want to be a social personality, but like if you believe something, the easier way to push that message out is to make a video. Like some people are like, oh, I don't know how to make videos, or man, it's just like, if I make a video, like it's going to be bad. I'm like, do you have any idea where, somebody that we know of, Gary V, like this dude was in a white t-shirt, bald head, like talking to his laptop camera, you know what I mean? Like, or just a camera in general. Like he didn't have no special production. His wine videos were literally a camcorder. You know what I mean? He just sat there talking about wine, and he did like over 1,000. I think I remember he did hundreds of those episodes. And so if somebody's got a message, you just got to push it out there. You just got to take your phone, put it somewhere where, it's in clear view of you. You know what I mean? And make sure there's that, just at least you can be seen at minimum. But at the same time, all you got to do at that point, hit record. Like nothing else matters. As long as you can record something on your phone, it's going to hear you. It's going to see you. And then, just push it out. Like actually hit submit, publish, boom, put it out there. You'd be surprised what you actually will get in return.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. I think it was just that fear of people the criticizing the way they look, the way they sound, scared to sound stupid. And
Yeah,
that's why I tell everybody, like, if you're providing value in it's something like, especially your business, right? Like you love it, there's no such thing as sounding dumb. There's no such thing as being stupid because you're the expert at what you do. You see this every
right,
day. Because
right,
I know they have customers who love them. You know, like this is a fact. All you're simply doing is going online, flourishing that, so who may not know you, they can
right.
start to. Yeah, man. So I would say this, Wesley. I think since the pandemic happened, I think a lot of business owners and people in general
Yeah,
have become more willing to actually do video, you know,
right.
and want to, because they have to shoot. I don't care if it's someone who's at a corporate job, like, oh snap, we're not in the office for 6 months, we got to go on Zoom. It's, you must do this, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah. There's no choice.
yeah. So I think that's another silver lining I've seen in this, and being able to optimize your time, because I was that crazy guy networking and trying to do one-to-ones. Hey, we could get on a Zoom call. I'd be like, why do Zoom? Let's just meet up here. Okay, cool. I'm totally fine with that. But I was trying to like save time as
Right.
going out and just block them. But now that's the norm now. So like, I think a lot of people are starting to see how much this can help, how it can save time in their processes and still be able to communicate just like face to face, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's funny because because I and I always tell people this when I talk about my business if they don't already know, but like, and it's going to bring us into, we both know of a group called Video Warriors, which is a really dope place where people can learn about how to sell video, how to, do all that. It's a great community. But for me, when I started my video business, like, it wasn't like I didn't do certain things. It wasn't like I didn't make video. I didn't do wedding videos. I did two of them. I got certified as a Part 107 drone pilot. So, I was able to fly drones officially, commercially, all kind of stuff. And I did these videos. I did promotional videos. I did church videos, church promotional videos. I did anything I can think of. But yet I was so afraid to what I struggled with was the difficulty of not having a process in place, because I was afraid, because I knew what marketing was. I knew what Facebook ads were. I knew that, once I click that button, turn that key, I'm going to have people coming through. And I was like, oh man. And now that I look back, I'm like, I realized the fear wasn't that I wasn't ready to do it or that I didn't want to do it. It was because I was afraid of being responsible for all this stuff coming through, and I didn't have a system for it. So that's what it was. So people listening, like, you don't have to have everything worked out. That's true. There's also a book called U Squared. I'm spacing on the author, but basically talks about, like, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever is out there, like, people are going to give you their perspective. Books are going to give you, their view, their experiences. All those are great, but you really just have to, like, do you really. And it's because, like, the minute you start, that's the first step. I'm reading a book right now called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that dude literally says, like, all you have to do is create something that takes less than 2 minutes to start a habit. So it's not like, oh, the year's resolution, because that's coming around. People are like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm about to get, But obviously, some places you can go to the gym now, but it doesn't mean you can't work out at home. So, but what people see is they see that new goal and they're like, oh man, it's like, it's so huge. It's hard to, like, I'm afraid because it's so huge. That's what happened to me. I wasn't piecing together each small part that I needed to do to get that system in place over time. If I was able to do that, then it would have allowed for me to actually take it one step at a time and actually have a system so that when I did the ads, I could receive that kind of stuff, schedule it properly, handle it properly, and go forward. But so in my sense, I was playing business. I had an LLC and everything, but I wasn't doing it right. I was just saying I had one. I running around with the camera like, ooh, I know what I'm doing. And it's that was my struggle. But for anybody else that's trying to do stuff, like, you literally just have to start with one thing, and get that thing to become. I heard this thing. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it talked about you have to standardize something before you can. It was about standardized before you can repeat it often. Like it has to be a standard before you can continue to like, move on to something else or grow it to be something different. You know what I mean? And that's what I didn't understand. Like I should have just started with one type of video, like promotional or whatever for churches, and just started with that, boom, 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 and then slowly move into something else because I had a standard that I could repeat and get money from that. And I had a process to ingest all that. So that's the way that I see that I struggled with that. But like, what kind of struggles did you see when you grew Ignite Cinemas?
Yo, I felt that a lot though with the process. James, I read that book too. What
Yeah.
shifted my mind real quick, he was like saying like a plane can leave from DC and like he can go 2 centimeters lower than regular altitude, and by the time it gets to LA, that plane's in a different spot. It's not in LA no more. And it's right? Those things, like that.
Those little degrees, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that you're reading that. You read that. Like I took a lot from that. And just small steps. I want to be like, oh, this is going to be my fitness track, doing small things that are obtainable as opposed to a big thing that I knew I was going to give up like after a week. So that's great. But yeah, bro, process is key, man. That was one of my struggles too. Really, my personal struggle was finding a niche. Like, what did I want to do? Like, I was doing music videos at a young age, like 21, 22, 23, but I knew that wasn't going to be how I made a living, having a family as I moved into the 30s and past that. So it was finding a niche, and I wanted to work with like internet marketers, which I did, but I wanted more. It was like, okay, I know this stuff is powerful. I know they can people can use video to make money to increase sales, but I didn't know the language or the value of actually pitching it, because I was a freelancer essentially. Like I was that guy getting hired out in the agency behind the scenes doing the editing work, filming, just hitting the record button, but not really knowing the pieces internally of what made that successful. Right. So it was a long time. It took me 10 years to find it till we met in the Warriors. Shouts to Nick and Marcus. Shout out to them, man, because they really helped me out since 2018. And finding those shifts, like, hey, you actually got to provide value, because there's other people who are doing video who are not trying to solve problems. They just want to make something look good. And one of the things that helped me so much was, of course, getting a process, like having them fill out a form before they even contact me, of course, so I can learn about them. But more importantly, going in my community and making real connections. And like, it's not the sexiest thing to say, because people want it fast. They want, oh, this is taking too long. I don't want to farm. I don't want to harvest a year or two. In my boat, I'm 2 years in now, and I'm finally harvesting everything. People don't want it. It's boring, quote unquote. But yo, like, my shift for me was realizing being authentic and being genuine and building real relationships. It'll trickle down to you be referral. Okay, baby, that's my kid in the background. It will come down to trickle down. Referrals, and just being a likable person that people like. Like they see me or they see you, they like you. Oh yeah, he does video production too. That's been the biggest ahas, processing connections, real connections.
Yeah, that's true, because once you build that relationship, man, that's how the world turns. And the one thing that's been a difficult thing for me is when I'm building that relationship and I do think about solving problems, I do actually know that there's a way to go about it too. And you learn that the hard way, because if you want to try to solve all their problems, like, they're not going to want to have all that right now. Like, you have to focus on that one thing first. And then once you take care of that issue for them, you're like, hey, I noticed these things. Would you have some time to talk about it? And, if you built a rapport, which is super important, if you built that rapport, then they can be like, yeah, I would love to talk about that. Like, yeah, I have some suggestions for some things I saw that you could probably do better. And, if you'd like, we can definitely talk about that if you want to do a project and see if we can tackle that, And I found that the hard way because it's so interesting that I'm seeing all this now. It's like as I talk to people, I'm like realizing it, and I'm actually restructuring my business next month because I'm going into app development. I'm trying to be a software engineer, and there's a lot of the things that I have in the works with that. But like when it comes to like a business, it's all about like it doesn't matter if you don't know. That's okay. You just have to focus on what you do know and work with that. And it's okay to admit if you don't know something because it's there's this thing that people say like in sales you want to like fake it till you make it, and I get that 100%, but at the same time like that's what everybody's always getting. And you have to also put a little bit authenticity in what you're trying to sell too.
Facts, man. I think you nailed it with that fake it to make it. I faked it till I made it. Like I was recording, like I was vlogging my personal journey, like just being broke. And I shared it like a few months ago as a throwback Thursday of where I was a year ago. But even when I was quote faking it till I make it, I was still vlogging and showcasing people in my community. So you can't fake that. When you're given knowledge of like tips on how to record a video or some tips, you can't fake that either because you know it. So it's a shift of like, yeah, you might not be whatever success looks like for you right now,
right?
But you can still be an expert because you know this. Like you are confident. You have to make yourself confident and just provide the value so people could trust you eventually.
Yeah. I've also because I'm when you go to when you commute, you're listening to a lot of podcasts, and I was listening to another podcast. My wife and I, because she teaches piano, so I'm trying to help her build a reoccurring revenue model where you can do a membership site, and so we're working with her on that. So that way she can build courses and put them on the site, and people just pay to be a part of that. And which is definitely, I think, everything going on right now. I think people need to really start thinking about like how to take what they know and build it into a membership website, simply because it's not about, there's already people out there. It's like, of course, when you're teaching people how to build a business, of course, there's like a million places out there, but it's just like how you purchase a product. How many laptops are there out there? There's a bunch, but it's not like, it doesn't matter. It's about what they have, how they're portraying it, like, what kind of attitude, what's the company about. But when you turn that around to people that are trying to sell you something, it's like, what perspective are they coming from? Like who are they as people? Like, can I connect with them? Can I relate with them? And the podcast I was listening to, it was a coach who was a history teacher, and his wife was a librarian. I forget what type of librarian, but there was like a certain terminology to it that I've lost it. But the point is, they built a recurring revenue model where they basically took the librarian lesson plans, and they built this into like the lesson plans, and then they built it into like a course. And so they built a membership website, and they turned around. It was like a year or 2 or 3 years later, they sold it for $1 million.
Wow.
So that is something where I'm like, we might need to look into that. But to dive back to what I was originally talking about is that connection, that relation to their story. Like they're Southern people from Kentucky, man. They're Christian people. And not that necessarily matters. I'm trying to give like a point to like, who they are as people. And so they kind of hit me in my heart with what I want to do. My wife and I, we want to have kids, but we also realize that it's so important. We're seeing everybody that has kids and families and da-da-da. And we're like, we really want to make sure our stuff is in line before we have kids, because we have the opportunity. Now, respect to those that don't have opportunities, that, hey, that something happened, here's a kid, God's gift, that kind of thing. And you got to run with what you got. Respect to that. I got a lot of family members that have been through that. My brother's been through that. So I have respect for that. But in my situation, having the opportunity to take care of stuff and do what's right before the kid gets here, I'm like, okay, well, we need to square away debt. We need to also make sure there's something here so we can not have a day job, but have reoccurring revenue so that we can turn around and go spend time with family. Because this episode of the podcast actually is dedicated to my late friend, Jason Lamar Dewberry, who passed away. And we said goodbye to him yesterday. But it made me think about what in this world is important, and what's important is family, what's important is friends. But with a day job, you really can't. It's hard to take that time. I'm not saying businesses are not. When you own your own business, it's not like a day job, but you do have more flexibility in that. Like if you need to handle some stuff, you can, and it also gives you the ability to be mobile. So my first step in that process is being a software engineer that's fully remote. And that way I can, with SpaceX getting their new internet stuff from satellites, like eventually we'll be able to be in a like an RV or something and just be traveling and go spending time with family because that's what's important. So definitely something that I've seen, and I don't know, man. I need to make that happen.
I'm right there with you, man. Like
Yeah.
I will admit that's one of the things I've always. Oh, I need to do that because my best friend, he sells online courses,
Right.
Spanish course, and I saw him like hit peak levels just starting. I'm like, how did you do it? He's like, man, I started. Like, you're overthinking it. Like mind you, he speaks English, but he's just teaching Spanish in a different way because his personality people are already drawn to because he's done it already with basketball training, So shouts to my boy Rock. And
Right.
like it's just one of those things, man. Like I'll get to it later, but imagine if we did like start immediately. Like imagine if we created a course or you helped your wife with the piano course, like even building that out.
Right.
And it like it's got to be awesome to even say, hey, I got a course to teach you. Like, yeah, that's my goal for next year, man. Just to finally have a course to help people, business owners specifically, film and get out their heads and create great content without even calling me, just being able.
That's a good point that you bring up, and what I think is important about that is business owners that are listening to this. Yes, you can hire business owners such as Ignite Cinemas, but Ignite Cinemas, I would say, and you are more than happy to correct me if I'm wrong, but businesses like yours, such as mine was, Iron Digital Media, we were here to do projects and to solve problems, yes, but then again, we're not the businesses, we're not the people in the businesses. People don't do business with businesses, they do business with people, right? So that's where that relationship, that's where that, hey, how can I relate to this person? That's where that comes from. And what's important is like these business owners need to understand, or if it's not just a business owner, even if it's a company, companies need to find a way. I know in some areas like hospitals and like there's certain sectors and industries that like doing video is difficult because of obvious, data or whatever the case. However, there still can be a way that video can be done to communicate the proper message in addition to creating a personality, a relationship with the community and letting them know like, hey, this is what we know. Because if people are trying to search for problems they have and they're trying to find a solution and they come across a business or an organization's video content, like they can connect with that real quick, and then they would choose that over the people that aren't doing.
Dude, you made a great point. One of the clients we serve is a hospital. After everything, people were scared to even go in. I mean, and the key word there was safety. So they created process videos to showcase what it looks like before you even step in. If you had surgery, and I think that's fair enough to say with everybody. People are always scared to come on the other side, and it's up to us, business leaders, business owners, nonprofits,
right,
to make that, especially now in the times we are, safe and showcase these are the precautions. Safe. That's the big thing.
right. Like hey, here's the guy. Like that's the tough thing too. If we can dive into that, is like people are scared because they don't know where to get their information. And yeah, you can follow the CDC, but if I in this snippet of what I'm going to say, if I can say that if everybody is at least coming from a perspective of the benefit of the doubt, like the CDC is doing the best that they can with what they have, without going into any other types of conversation that people can get into about that kind of stuff. But if we're going with the benefit of the doubt, they're trying to do the best they can. So every organization is coming from what the CDC says as guidelines, right?
Yep.
So like just having businesses communicate that, like, hey, listen, we may still be certain areas may be shut down still, but those that aren't, like, hey, listen, like here is what we're doing to try to provide a safe environment. Like I went to vote, and when my wife and I voted, they had system in place. Like they had chalk drawn on the sidewalk, like, hey, don't go past like your number this, blah, blah, blah in line. and the volunteers, they all had like face guards and masks and stuff like that, and so they were doing everything that they could, but that's all that can be done, is doing whatever is like being encouraged by the CDC or maybe mandated or whatever the case. But to communicate that, like you mentioned, with through hospitals, like I'm curious, you work with them probably on that. So like, how did that work out?
Yeah, basically, a lot of the stuff we were doing had to pivot a little bit different. So
Right.
it became time to even do like virtual newsletters every week with them.
Yeah.
And that way it could be like a sort of morale as opposed to just reading. Like, here's the CEO telling his staff updates on the patients that they're serving, if anyone in the house who has the COVID, and more or less boosting their morale as opposed to reading from a newsletter. So that's one of the ideas we shifted with. And of course, like I mentioned, showing processes of what it looks like in labor and delivery,
Right.
and in for surgery, what your next checkup would look like before you step in to come in. And it was those things of solving problems, helping them achieve that and showcase that. So all it is was pivoting, because a lot of the people I was, this is personal speaking, a lot of people I was dealing with who had contracts with me, some actually canceled. Like, hey, I can't. We closed things down. I can't finish this project I put a deposit on. A lot of projects got canceled. So like, it was just trying to show value that we could still make this work.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, like that. I think that's an important thing to dive into, is like with what's going on right now, there are still ways to pivot. And actually, the one thing that I can bring in from what I'm aware of is the movie industry. That's $1 billion industry. You really think they're going to let a pandemic stop them from making money? Ha! So what they did was, and I think this is pretty smart, because of how movies can be done, they literally would say, okay, so everybody's getting tested. Everybody, and as long as you don't have it, you're good. And then they're going to take different teams. And so let's say you have a set, right? You're in video production, so it's kind of the same thing. You have a set and they set it up, but different teams go in and do different things they got to do. And nobody is ever in the same room at the same time for different teams to like lessen the possibility of something being, you know what I mean? And so because they did that, movies are still able to come out. And so I was surprised in my perspective to see that theaters, were like, oh, we got to close down. I'm very surprised nobody's actually found another way to pivot. Like, you may not be able to have all the theaters open, but at the same time, like 50% capacity and just spread everybody out, and it's a little different too. Cause like, if you're coming from the same household, or the same group of friends, like they're already spending time together. Like you can't, like, they're not going to want to sit away from each other that far, like I'm not sitting nowhere away from, my wife is sitting right here, like she's sitting way down that way. I got kids. They are not sitting over there. They're sitting right next to me, So it's like, that is still a possibility. It's still difficult, but I still think it's doable. The problem was they were afraid to take responsibility if something happened. But the reality is, if they were just following those procedures, and also, like you mentioned, I hope anybody from the movie industry or like theater industry is listening, like just video it. I mean, y'all literally in a film industry to show films, like y'all know what it's like to do video. So get somebody out, show them the processes. Here's what we got. You already have the people that sell tickets behind glass. Yeah. So,
wow. I realize that. Holy cow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they've been ready for that. Already behind the glass. Yeah.
Yeah, that. And then like, the concession stand, every store you ever go to, all they're doing is putting plastic over it. So that's all you got to do. And they already use utensils for the popcorn, so that's not a big deal. I mean, these fast food restaurants are still operating. I'm very surprised that these movie theaters are not. I guess that the other thing you can think of is like, oh well, if we do it, we'd have to like wipe down every seat. I'm like, let's think about it. Because no matter what, businesses are already doing stuff like that. They have somebody full-time. My job, they have somebody full-time cleaning surfaces every hour. And so, that's all you got to do. You basically take somebody that would normally be doing something else and you say, your job is to just wipe it down the designated seats that we have. Because then again, you have to realize too, if it's 50% capacity, they're not making the same amount of money, but at the same time, you can still make that expectation and then somehow maybe have like an agreement where, all right, we'll do 50% capacity in the theaters, but people can buy tickets to the movie and use that code online to buy a movie or to rent a movie online to watch at home.
Yeah.
Like that's another way. But I haven't seen any of them like do that. All I see is the movie industry going straight to renting online, but there's no agreements with the theaters.
Like Mulan. I think that Mulan. Yep.
Yeah, that one went straight to Disney Plus. I can't remember if like they did in theaters and renting, but I think that's important. I think they should give both options, but I think there should be some sort of an agreement with the theaters to say, hey, if they go through your website and purchase a ticket, they can still use that code and that money will still go back to the theater. Because I think, no, I take that back. I think the way the tickets work is it goes directly to the box office. So it's like it goes straight to the movies, and the movie theaters only make money on the concession stands, I think. So that's interesting. So I guess that is a challenge. I don't know how that would work, but I still think there's some sort of a way to make it possible, whether in person or virtually. Like I'm very surprised that I haven't seen now that I'm a software developer. I should mention that. Why don't AMC have an app like Netflix? Why not? It would be very easy because they only have the movie for those who buy tickets for it, so you can watch it at home. You know what I mean?
Boom. They need to cut you a check right now, homie. That's a big. What is it? What Marcus Rideout said: the bigger the problem you solve, the more money you can charge for it. That's a big problem you're solving right there, my friend.
I do also want to dive into that actually because I think not a lot of people know that when you solve problems like you mentioned, you make more money depending on the size of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you like, because I don't know how to explain this to other business owners. Like I understand it. It makes sense because, for example, if I'm working with a company that has a $30,000 to $50,000 marketing budget, it's fair for me to say, for this project, for what we're doing, for this length of time, I'm going to have to charge, say, 15 grand, right? For the project. The problem is people are like, oh no, you could do that for like 2 grand or 5 grand or whatever. Like, but where are you getting that number from?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not inflating my prices, but I'm also demanding a certain number because of what I've already done. Like as a business, like I can charge that. Like, do you think the person who made the Nike logo, do you think they charged 5 grand?
Yeah. Do you think
you can go on Fiverr? You know what I mean? Like obviously that logo was done years ago, but at the same time, it's like that actually speaks to it. You are solving the size of the problem that you're solving. Like the Nike logo goes on so many things. It's not just products. It's also the shipping packages. It's everything. It's all of their stuff in every store. Like it's all their marketing material. Like it's more than just a product logo.
Yeah.
So because it goes on so much, it's going to be seen so much. And to that scale, you have to have something that demands compensation for something like that, So on the same, I think it's valid to say, and I would love your input, like what from what you've learned from Video Warriors and from your business, like, and you don't have to get into like very specifics because I know that maybe confidential or whatever, or you may want to not discuss that, but with pricing, like. How do you go about pricing based on what you've learned?
I realize people want this industry, or they have this idea that this industry is supposed to be cookie cutter, that a video is only supposed to be, the biggest thing is like, it's only a 30-second video. Why does it cost $2,500? That should be easy, right? But it's actually counterintuitive because that actually takes a lot longer to get everything perfect in 30 seconds as opposed if it was stretched out longer.
Yeah.
And I think it's just being spoiled. Like I've had business owners, I had two, and as long as I've been doing this, who kind of asked like, where do you get your pricing from? Like, isn't every video supposed to be this and that? Like you're only coming out for here. And I had to break it down for them. And one lady, she couldn't understand it, like the value from it. And it's like I told her, I was like, hey, like I'm not a set price company like what maybe a roofer or what a roof might cost. You have this problem here, and I'm telling you, this is the results we're gonna get. This is what I put on the line. Because if I don't get you this, my name's gonna be tarnished in this community.
Right.
You know, like that's one thing I do. Like I put it on the line. If I mess it up, people are gonna know, especially in my community. I think I got poor connection right now.
Right.
But yeah, so I totally, when I go, and that's the reason why they fill out a form. And when I talk to them, I don't even mention anything about video, even though they want video.
Right.
Talking about problems that they might have, roadblocks. What are some outcomes in your business that you haven't started selling, but you want to boost, enhance? Or you have an online store? Like, what's all this stuff in the pot that can help you get to that ultimate goal? And I've only had two people pivot back because they were dawned at the price tag. But what I realized is that you have to price it accordingly, because if you keep taking, let's say you do a job that's 15 grand, like you said, obviously you're going to be putting more effort into that as opposed to if you're only doing 1,500. Imagine you in that month, like imagine if people had, if you're lowballing yourself for 800 a job, not only more jobs, it's not feasible because you're going to be shorting yourself thin. It's just it's a disservice for everybody, in my opinion. You know, the 15 grand job, you're probably giving your all because this is huge. Like the goal is huge. You guys have the budget to do it huge like this, and you're going to make it back immediately. So I think there was a misconception with what I dealt with. Is like I was trying to inflate for no reason.
Yeah.
But they got to understand how much time is involved from someone else who will pay that same amount. It's a disservice for everybody. That's my main thing.
Yeah, and I can agree. And I think the one thing that can express that is that when you're pricing, there's a lot of factors, right? So we go into the budget, right? But that's not the question that you ask, right? That's one thing that I remember learning from Video Warriors is like you don't ask the budget, you tell them what the price is. And here's why. It's like you're not being a dick. You're not being somebody who's just trying to, pull money out of nowhere. It's like, okay, the reason why we ask these questions, like, is because we want to understand, like, how much are you pulling in monthly? What revenue do you have coming in? And that helps you understand, okay, so based on that, you can run and understand, okay, this is a percentage that generally a business should use for marketing, so I can go off of that. So you're not asking their budget, you're getting that number yourself, and then you're saying, okay, so, how much are you selling this if it's like, let's say you're just marketing a course, right? So how much are you selling this for? Then you go based on this video marketing, like, and all that kind of stuff. Like when the campaign's over with, if you're looking to make, such and such money, it is very worth it to say, okay, well, I'm going to charge this, and here's why. Because you're going to make this much amount, and it's not like that conversation is going to be had, but if they want to have it, it's like, this is why.
Yep.
And the video equipment alone, if we're talking about that, like, you may own equipment, but let's be honest, like, you don't even need to own equipment these days. If people are listening and you want to get into video, you do not need to own equipment. You can start with an iPhone. I'm not kidding. Nick, one of the guys in Video Warriors, sold his first project literally at a coffee shop, recorded it right there with her on a phone. And that lady, and he went back later, like a year later, and was like, hey, you want to renew that video? She's like, nah, man, I'm still making
money. It's converting. It's working. People connect.
Yeah.
What up, Sensei? Nick Koyoma. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where I connected a lot with that community, and how, like, that's when I started learning, like, oh man, and let me be clear here. Like, You partook in the Video Warriors, and when I had mentioned earlier that he's having fun. When I was in the Video Warriors, man, I love the community. I love what they had to offer, but I was still focusing on I was not focusing. I was still struggling with my issues that I had trying to run my own business, and the fact that like not only was it a monetary thing, like nobody, you got to have that cash. You got to have the cash to invest, and I was also struggling with not having that process in place. So for me, I'm like, man, I really wanted to be a part of that. But I also found later on that, like, I don't know if video business, like, I love video. I love preaching what people can do with it. But I found I might be going a different direction on that. And that's okay, because not everybody, has to do one thing. They can always do different. There's many different things you can do in video. And from like, I focus primarily on social content, like strategizing, like that strategy of how do you actually position certain pieces of content or your message or whatever the case. There's a strategy aspect to it too. Like, you talk about the strategy, but then I could probably focus on it and like actually make that my whole thing. And that is where I can build a better process. And that's where when I started thinking that way, I was like, man, I feel super comfortable now. Like, I don't feel this apprehensiveness. And it was clear to me, like, this is what I wanted to do at a later time. But that's what I think some people, like, they get scared of when they're doing video. They're like, oh, I call it, what do they call them? Like, they were just ticket takers?
Tire kickers.
Something like that. Well,
ticket take, yeah.
Yeah, where all they did was, oh, you want these things? Sounds great. I'll do that.
Yeah, ticket takers, yep.
And not they wouldn't
qualifying people, man.
Exactly. So, we can wrap it up on this, man. So, Video Warriors, we're on that topic. We're already talking about the community. So tell me what Video Warriors did for you, and how did that really, like, what did you get out of it, if we're going to be completely honest about it?
It made me step in as a business leader, owner, as a leader, and someone who's taking on more than just making a video. It's like putting my reputation on the line and building a video production company from scratch in the community the right way. And positioning myself like that. Now, there's a lot of others who are following suit, which is great as inspiration. But sometimes even one of the person I contract out, he didn't want to do his own business. He'd rather get paid to freelance, help me out on projects, make the community bigger, him get paid what he wants. He's helping everybody.
Yeah.
To get the business owner who we work with a video, help them reach their goals. So the Video Warrior program gave me confidence. That's what it gave me. It finally gave me aha moment, like, oh wow, like, I'm not supposed to be posting on Craigslist to do any job that comes along. It's like a bigger mission. Like, wake up in the morning, what problem can I solve? How can I make someone's life better? And owning that, man. And I'm 2 years in, bro, and it's been a dream come true.
That's awesome. So let's leave on this, man. What tips do you have for business owners that want to get into video, and actually kind of utilize it in the way that we talked about before, where they take their personality and they kind of build off of that?
Yeah, don't be afraid of who you're meant to be. Like, we all have a gift. We all have a purpose, and we are all superheroes as business owners. So people, obviously you have customers already out there. People are drawn to you. It's just the fact that it wasn't documented yet on video. Let that stuff flourish out on social, because the people who are your clients, I'm sure they'll share the video, and someone who's not your client or in your bubble per se, in your community of what you do, I guarantee you it will spark an interest in them. So basically, at the end of the day, is anyone can make excuses that they don't have the right video equipment, they don't have this and that. It's not true. All you need is a good light in front of you and your cell phone, and provide some tips, provide some personality, like provide everything that makes you the awesome human being you are. Just start. That's all it is. Just start.
Yeah. And I think that's it for today, man. I know you said you had a limited amount of time, so I want to wrap it up here. But I'm definitely down to definitely talk again, because I think this was a great conversation, and I know you had a short window, so I'd love to have you on again if you'd like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I know today was a little off. Kids running around. My fiance had to go to a baby shower, so it was last minute pivots. But I would,
Hey,
I didn't want to miss this, man, because
I
I've
appreciate
never
that.
met you in real life. But I feel like we have a great connection just meeting in the community we met in. And I'm always a fan of what you're doing and the inspiration, even with the videos about clearing debt. Because, dude, been there, like,
Yeah,
and just having an authentic connection with a genuine soul like yourself. So
I
it's a blessing.
appreciate that, man. That's nice. Well, everybody, this has been Jaime Garza, owner of Ignite Cinemas, and I'm grateful to have him. And I hope that when it comes to video, when it comes to anything in business, as you learn from the failures that I've had as I grow and build them, I'll continue to talk about how I'm going about pivoting a different way in what works best for me and what's authentic for me, not what I think is best off of a YouTube video that I watch. So always remember that you got to find what's authentic to you and just start, like Jaime said. So thanks for being on the show, man. I greatly appreciate it. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, Frank, experience. Light that fuse in you. Ignite it.